Okay, maybe I'll stand for the pledge, please. Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Kathy Aldenstein. Here. Joy Sellers.
Here.
Melinda Cook. Here. Patrick Sellers.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. The first order of business is the approval of minutes for January 2nd, 2018. And motion is second, please.
So moved. Second.
Motion, Alderson, second by Sellers. Please take a look at the minutes.
Oh, did you?
I read them anyway.
You want a copy? I have here.
No worry about it. I read them.
So it says approval of minutes for December 18th.
I changed it. I sent you a revised version. You did-
That's what I
But
thought.
you, yeah.
You thanked me, that's perfect.
Yeah, I changed it on the master one.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns about our minutes? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next order of business is approval of bills payable. I need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Okay.
Motion by Sellers, second by Aldenstein. Please take a look at our bills payable.
So at the last meeting, you said 20 active clients, but the amount on this is very low. What, there's only $400 and $462 in general assistance.
We'll probably see more at the next meeting. More.
Because of that, because it was the end of the year or something?
So we'll probably see more.
Is it the first set is not usually rent, the second set is for the following month?
Any more questions or claims or demands? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Aldenstein.
Aye.
Cook.
Yes.
Sellers.
Aye.
Sellers.
Aye. Motion carries. The next order of business is our guest, Mrs. Pat Ludwig. Would you please come forward and address the board?
Thank you for this opportunity, as my son just library there, to talk about this pearl that we have in Freeport. We don't advertise a lot because we're a charitable organization, and but through the grassroots efforts, we're getting out there. I'm going to pass around some information first, and then I'll dive in. And I think sometimes the best thing are to have questions. I don't know how many of you have those. I'm going to go ahead and if you want to save it for someone.
I think I have one from the last time.
Do you have one?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. I'll pass this. These are the, and as a teacher, we don't feel good unless we're giving out all this stuff. It kind of makes us feel secure.
Yep.
We got this too.
You got that too? Okay. There we go.
You got yours, Melinda?
I don't know, did you get this one too?
Yes.
Okay. How about this one? Okay. Well, I was more organized than I thought. Okay, very good. My name is Pat Ludwig. I'm the director of the Children's Dyslexia Center for Northwest Illinois. We started in 2004. I was a retired teacher for the Freeport School District for many years. And I had known that dyslexia was kind of an issue out there, and so I looked into it. I did give some speaking engagements at Highland, and then I was approached by a gentleman from the Masonic Temple. And he said, well, I understand you know about dyslexia. And I said, well, I know some about it. And he said, I just want you to know that we are planning on having a children's dyslexia center in Freeport, and I was amazed. I thought, I can't believe this, because of the fact that their awareness of dyslexia was really minimal. Usually what we hear from about dyslexia is they see things backwards, okay? And that's actually not true. They write things backwards. Yes, they may write things backwards, but a lot of times it's the letters, because the letters all look similar to them. I'm going to be jumping probably in and out of certain things, so if you have questions, you know, pull me back to where I'm supposed to be, all right? Okay, we started in 2004, and at that time we had 7 students and 6 trainees. And it is a charity of the Scottish Rite Masons here in Freeport, but also across what they call the northern jurisdiction. So those are states that are, which is interesting, it's almost like a north-south thing, but this is the charity that they decided to have and to go into, and corporate is located out in Lexington, Massachusetts. And they decided this for, I gave you the one handout, and that was the human cost of reading failure. When you take a look at that, it is just astounding. And I think they felt that as a charity, they wanted to kind of see if they couldn't attack this situation in the beginning levels. And so that those kids, especially particularly in the primary level, but it doesn't make any difference because obviously it goes all the way through to adulthood. Dyslexia now, the percentages are out, 1 in 5. 1 in 5. Now, that one person may have a severe dyslexic situation, maybe not that severe, but that's 1 in 5. You're talking 20% of a classroom population. You have those students, those 5 students that are having problems reading, well, that's that one group that there they are. I think the reason why, too, that it has come down to 1 in 5 is, number one, the testing for dyslexia is better. But also, unfortunately, the literacy programs that are being used across the country today are missing a major component. Many literacy programs, and they're missing the phonetic. Phonics has been taken out. Our students, our children, have to have phonics. That's how they understand the language spoken and written. If you take that component away from them, you've now basically impaired them or magnified their situation. Here's another issue too with dyslexia that most people think, and this goes with educators too, even psychologists and so on. They think that it is a medical problem, a medical issue. And if you go to a physician and you tell them, well, I think my child's dyslexic, the physician's going to go, and what do you want me to do about that? This happens in the school. What can I do for you concerning that? And are you supposed to give me all the things that are causing this? And then, jokingly, as some tutors have said, well, then you give them an ABC pill. That's just supposed to be funny. You know what I mean? Anyway, so in other words, a physician really has an issue trying to take care of this. So it falls back into the education arena, and the education arena says, you know, we don't want to deal with it because it's medical. Medical says, not really, it is an educational thing. In any event, it's out there. To get down to our center, for a child to be accepted into our center, we have to have an application filled out. It's just 2 pages. The parents have to provide transportation. The lessons are free. I can tell you that, and the lessons are done, and I'm going to start jumping around. We do Orton-Gillingham approach. The Orton-Gillingham approach is, to me, the Cadillac approach for dyslexics. We also provide a training program. The training program is approximately 10 months. And one gentleman right here is taking the program. You know, that's why he's carrying all of my things. They have to go through that. Anyway, no. Anyway, and he's taking the program right now. But it is, it's extensive for 10 months, and they work with 2 students 2 times a day. I'm starting to help. I'll hop back into the center. If a child is accepted into our center, that we have to have an application, we also have to have testing that is done by a certified psychologist. This is also becoming an issue now. And I will tell you the reason why is because at one point, psychologists would do a lot of this testing, or what we call certified testing and so on. And it would be an extensive profile. And the reason why we have to have that also is because we are in a research. We have to keep everything valid, okay? So I can't accept some children without having those requirements. Otherwise, it taints the research and the data. Yes, ma'am.
Who pays for the, what did you say they had to have?
Testing.
Yeah, who pays for that?
Okay, great question. Okay, the school district, it falls on the school district. Okay. This is a conundrum. If parents approach, and I'm giving you just situations that have happened with us here in this state. And by the way, we have about 5 other centers in the state, 4. The nearest center to us, see, I'm jumping around again to keep me
Pull you back in?
thank you. We have one in LaGrange. The next closest one, which is outside the state, is Madison. The nearest one from there is the Peoria Center, already closed. We have one in Champaign. We have one in Belleville. And
Belleville.
yes,
Southern Illinois.
yes, Southern Illinois. So that tells you what we cover. And by the way, we have parents that are driving from Oregon, Illinois, to get these specific lessons. And I call them basically therapy. We do not work with them with their schoolwork. They come in and we give them this very structured sequential program, okay? Very phonetic based. Works on their spelling, works on their writing, handwriting, processing, phonemic awareness, okay, understanding the English language and speaking it and so on. So they have that, because that's kind of the basic, if they're having issues with phonemic awareness, that's probably a major indicator that these children are going to have problems later on in reading. Now, to get back to the testing, okay, that means that it's up to if the child's in public school or in private school or homeschool, they can approach the principal and request that. In requesting that, there's now many roadblocks that are put in place. Okay, so they have to produce some sort of data that shows that there are issues with their reading. We have a thing now that's been out for quite a while called RTI, Response to Intervention. So then what happens is, well, we're going to respond to them by giving interventions and see how that helps. And see where that takes us. The problem is, in some districts, response to intervention can go on for years, and it's not supposed to. And we have parents that are not necessarily well aware of this. Okay. Also, the ISBE, Illinois State Board of Education, they're starting now to bring dyslexia in. Things are changing. It's been wonderful. They're starting to change. But at one point, it was stated in there, and I've already heard from some superintendents and so on, we do not need to do cognitive ability. Cognitive ability basically is an IQ. And we do have to have that as part of our assessment from a certified psychologist, so that we have a total profile on the child. We need to know what they're capable of. Maybe they're reading, that's what they can do, all right? And maybe not, and maybe that cognitive ability is extremely strong, and they are not doing anywhere where they should be. So it gives us a better profile. In any event, it's very difficult for parents sometimes to acquire this testing without going through a lot of roadblocks and loops and hoops and everything else that they have to go through. We already have a parent that's going through that right now. But she's educating herself on.
My first question was, is it genetic?
Good question. Okay, I'm glad. This helps me, and then we can get to your questions, because
Okay.
I think that's the crux of it, as opposed to me going on and on. All signs are pointing to hereditary. Okay, all signs are pointing that way. They used to think that it was predominantly in males as opposed to females. They're finding that is not the case. Right now, I think they're calling it almost 50-50 because many of the females at one time would just kind of back off, be very quiet, and wouldn't cause issues. We have, our girls are becoming more independent now, and when there are problems, they will come out and state them. So we're finding now that it's probably about 50-50. Let's see.
And then the other question
Yes.
was, you know how they treat for ADHD? I used to work
Okay,
at-
we find ADHD and
Counseling
ADD kind of goes hand in hand with dyslexia. Does it mean that if you're dyslexic, you have that? No. Or if you're ADD, ADHD, you have dyslexia? No. But there are quite a few of our students, and this is not only in our center, but in other centers, that we do have students that are dyslexic and have ADHD.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see where else I wanted to go with this.
Could I just say, like, along those lines, it's kind of more of a spectrum type disorder, not even spectrum, but that it could be a lot of different things, that it's not just like, maybe you see words, dysgraphia, I mean, how you visually interpret words, right? But that could mean infinite things.
We have dyscalculia, which is dyslexia of math. Dysgraphia, issues with writing. The writing and getting it from here to the hand is an issue. And again, remembering, we started talking about this too with the letters. Uppercase letters are not as much of an issue. They're capitals, okay? We have now pulled in, of course, we did this in the 20s, we pulled in the lowercase, the manuscript. And the reasoning for that was it started in England and then it came over here. And the reason was, well, it looks more like printing that's in a book, okay? And if you can write it, then you're probably going to be able to read it. For our dyslexic, they have issues with symbols and remembering symbols. I'm going to get into the brain very quickly with this because then it's easier to understand. How many of us are left-handers here? Any left-handers? We got one. Okay, very good. Okay, all right. I equate that, or I kind of use that to say dyslexia is, between right and left. Okay, so something in the brain has gone with the dominance for the left hand. Okay, also in the brain here, in 2000, there's research that's been done with fMRIs, visual imaging of the brain, and they took a student that was a automatic reader, and a student that was having major difficulties, and then would take imaging of the brain. What parts of the brain were working as they were reading, or attempting to read? What we found out was the automatic reader, those people that have, they catch on to the key to get into reading. They're using this part of their brain back here and towards the front. What they found out with dyslexics is they're using this part of the brain. This part of the brain is for the arts, music, the artistic part of the person. Okay, but however, it is not what we would say efficient for reading. However, if you notice that anyone that's come out and said they're dyslexic, particularly with the movie stars and so on, Jay Leno, Suzanne Summers, Cher, we could go on and on. Well, if they're using this part of the brain and they're using it to try and find the key to open up reading for them, they're really working on this, but it's not efficient. That means they are working that brain. What they found was when they gave the student that had issues, was a non-reader or had difficulties with reading, when they gave them a program such as Orton Gillingham, very tactile, diagnostic, prescriptive, and so on, they found, just like therapy, they found that it was starting to light up over here. This was after about 6 months. So this is exciting. It's teaching the brain to use this part as opposed to this for reading. Then it becomes more efficient and more effective. Okay? Not sure if there was something else I wanted
So
to go.
does any of that, when they read something, how much do they absorb and remember?
Okay, that's a very good question. Comprehension can be affected, of course, because if they're trying to read something and they can't unlock the words, they don't have a phonetic background, they're guessed by golly, look at the picture, now here's the word, now remember that, now here are all the words up on the wall. This does not necessarily work for our students, okay? So for comprehension, some of them, and again, oh, by the way, I'm glad you brought that up, dyslexics have average, and in most cases, above average intelligence. These are the students where they come out with labels of they're lazy. They're not trying, okay? You're good in math, why aren't you good in reading? You were so good in the first and second grade, and now everything has fallen apart, okay? So these are the things, and we even see kids almost getting into what's called bullying because of the fact they're trying to defend themselves. Everybody knows that they're having a problem reading, and those that are reading are wondering what's wrong with you, okay? Because you seem smart at this, or you seem very capable at this. Dyslexics are very gregarious. Many times they can talk their way out of anything, okay? You have, that's no effect on you. Many times your CEOs will have wonderful office management, and they'll have all the stuff they're supposed to read, and they'll say, would you read that for me? I've got all this I have to go through, and just let me know the highlights, okay? And then you tell them the highlights, and they come out, they know what's going on, okay? Well, this is a sidebar, but our president, Bush, there is dyslexia in their family. Barbara Bush, she championed for this. And I could see some things going on with him when he was delivering a speech. And I don't know if if you're not around it, but you can almost kind of catch it. He's reading what's going on, and you can, and of course we scan, and there's a little bit of hesitation in what's happening. He's trying to acknowledge and understand the word he's going to say. This is my opinion. This is my opinion. And I thought right away, yeah, this would go on. Very bright, extremely bright individual. Okay, would not have gotten to where he is without being extremely bright.
How many students in the last, just say, 3 to 5 years have come into your program?
Okay, on average right now we are full, and that's a very good question. When a student starts with us, they start with us starting with the first lesson, which is usually assessments, and so that we can place them in the program. They're with us on an average of 2 years. 2 years means 2 nights a week, okay, after school. If people are homeschooled, then we can start them a little bit early, like say around 2 o'clock. But otherwise, after school, 2 nights a week, 1 hour, 50 minutes to 1 hour, one-on-one sessions. And we do have all the security and everything up there. And I was remiss in telling you, we are on the 3rd floor of the Masonic Temple. Okay. So we have had capacity, full capacity, the last 3 years.
What's capacity?
Full capacity is anywhere from 22 to 25 to 26 students.
That's relative to how many tutors there are?
It depends upon how many tutors, thank you, that's correct.
So like how many,
On an average, 2 students. On an average, we have a couple that have maybe 1 student. 2 students. The training, I want to get into the training quickly too, because that is extremely important. By the way, it costs $5,000 per year for this program.
$5,000 per what?
Per child per year.
Oh, per child.
Per child per year. In that is included is the training. Our training runs anywhere from $3,500 to $5,000 per trainee. Now, we, in our center, I'm hard pressed to say that that's what we spend, okay? We've found many, for our budget, we've had to find many ways to find a way around that, to find a way around that.
Wait, you are paying $3,500 to train per tutor for training?
No, we do not pay the tutor at all. The
No,
training.
what I'm saying, the cost to train a
The cost
tutor.
to train, if you were to consider the paper that goes into it, the binders that we use, the time that goes in, then also the child coming in there, what they're learning. Okay, so the trainee, for example, will go through approximately 65 hours of lecture, and that's done over a 10-month period. And they also will receive approximately 160 CEUs for doing that. So that is also a plus.
So is that a 4-year or 2-year
It's
license?
Thank you. It's approximately a 3-year license.
Okay.
And that is through IMSLC, and it's an International Multisensory Language Council, Education Council. Where did I remember that? And the other thing is, if a tutor so desires, they can obtain graduate credit through Aurora University, and they can receive 7 graduate credits. And that's very healthy.
Or 7 CPDUs or CEUs.
The CPDUs or CEUs, you get 160.
Okay, so to clarify, the tutor is not paying to participate in this program.
No,
No.
They're getting
The training
a
is
large
free.
amount of educational benefit.
that's right. That's right.
I struggle with that because like I come from an educational background and like there's a lot of teachers throwing out a lot of money for various cohorts and like training programs, and my understanding is a big issue with dyslexia growing is that we've changed from phonics to a whole language learning
Yes.
approach.
Yes.
So in schools, that's sight words
That's
is
right.
what whole language learning is.
That's
And
right.
because kids are learning sight words now and not phonics, now there's this huge increase in dyslexia. And because you can't get cognitive ability testing done easily because it requires a lot of parent interventions, you have to kind of be there asking for IEP meetings and things like that, which take
Yes.
teachers out there, whatever.
Yes.
I feel like teachers in districts should be paying to participate in this program and funding this program.
I agree.
They said, I can't.
I agree.
You can't get, you gotta get the school board to agree to that.
No, teachers are, teachers are get
Especially if you're
an
licensed.
allowance for education for the purpose of taking these types of classes. They are paying for them anyway.
And, no, let me tell you this, and this is not in defense of them, but number one, it is 10 months long. If you have a family, a young family, you have children that are in sports and so on and so forth, this, you can only spread yourself so thin, all right? And this is, and for a 10-month program, that is a major commitment for many people, okay?
And every teacher might not want to do that program, you know
Oh,
what I
I'm
mean?
not saying every
Yeah,
teacher
yeah.
should, but
No.
if
Right.
it seems very feasible that, because one of my other questions was, are there any of these trained tutors working in FSD 145?
We have, okay, to approach that subject, we do have approximately 2 people that are certified right now in the Freeport School District. I have already approached, since you've asked about Freeport, but understand, we bring in kids from all
Yeah.
over, from all over, okay? So we are not just specifically available to Freeport.
You're just
We are
out
Freeport
of,
Township,
you're
though,
just
so
out of
that's why.
the Masonic Temple.
Like we have,
That's
like I
just where
said,
you're
we have a
located.
parent that drives from Oregon, Illinois. We have people coming from Orangeville. We have people coming from Dakota. We have people coming from, that's all right, a ways away.
Yeah.
In any event, yes, they were approached.
But I do
I
know,
approached
I
them.
remember some years ago when I was a FRC at Lincoln Douglas School,
Yes.
there were teachers there that was under your program. That's why I knew about it.
We did have a couple, but that doesn't mean they were hired to do that. This is what I have to explain. They're not hired.
They just would be utilizing
They happen to
that
be there.
program.
If the principal approves that, if the superintendent and administration approves that.
That's what I was getting to.
Then if you approve, not to interrupt you, but if you approve that, that means you are accepting of this. We haven't even gotten to the accepting phase yet, in my head.
My only point is that this is a real steal to any educator looking to get their CPDUs because they could get them for free and also have a certification of something that might help with their teaching practice
Oh,
without having to pay for any number.
trained free of
yes,
charge?
we are so not only are we here for the students, we are also a training ground. And that's why I call this a pearl, because why aren't we in Rockford?
Yeah.
We are here, and I'm telling you, Rockford, oh, good heavens, we could have 3, 4, 5 of these. We should be training our oh, you people give me the chills, I just love this, thank you for being so receptive. Our special ed teachers, in my estimation, this is my opinion, our special ed teachers should be trained in this. Our
I think so.
reading
I would think
teachers,
so.
our reading teachers
I would
should be
think so.
trained in this.
Reading specialists, that's
Reading
if
specialists.
you're gonna teach
Should
20
be.
kids a day. you should
Can I ask
do
a
well.
question? When do you determine when you did, what's the age when you realize that the child is dyslexic?
Very good question. At the center, we can accept students from the age 6 through 17. We've just accepted a student right now who is 17. We won't be starting with him because we're at max. But as long as I can start with him and get him approved before he turns 18, he's in.
Oh.
I do want to just add this little sidebar
So what do
note.
they do with, if you're an adult and you realize you have this problem, you get no help?
Oh, wow, okay.
I will tell you this. Many of our trained tutors are already in what's called private practice.
Oh,
And I mean private practice to where they are just, they're busting at the seams, okay? They will have 3 and 4 kids, and they're doing it for a very, what I would call nominal fee. All right, I do know that in the Chicago area for certification with Orton Gilligan and through IMSLIC, the highest I noticed per hour that a tutor was charging was $220 an hour.
Wow. So
Here-
these people that you have doing this for these children, they're getting paid through you, correct?
Yes, they do get paid. They get paid
Okay.
only for that one-on-one time. We do not pay for their prep. We do not pay for anything after that. It's only for that one-on-one time with that contact time with that student. I wanted to add something very quickly too. We just accepted a high school student. This would have been in October. This child, and if you read this, we've got another one, but where there's one, there's more. This student, female, sophomore in high school, and reading at the first grade, 8th month.
Oh,
And she's gonna graduate.
It was
So
tough.
basically not a special ed.
She can't read a menu.
IEP.
Oh, yes. Always, even
How
to
did
the
she
point
get
where,
that far?
even where
Well, if you
I,
have an IEP, you can have reading levels with that.
I think that's a great question. And I think
just
that's
don't
a
get it.
question that
That's sadness in our educational system.
Well, so along those lines, because the cognitive ability testing can be hard for kids to have access to, do you have any outreach to target students with limited means whose parents maybe aren't advocating? It's hard for them.
I can, see, and I have to work through the parent. I can't jump over and take care of that for them. I can advocate, but minimally. I cannot be as involved, okay? But I can make suggestions, and I make suggestions that they contact RAMP, right? RAMP is familiar with us. And I can suggest that they ask questions in a certain way too. What I'm hopeful, the next thing coming down the pike, what I'm hopeful of is that perhaps we can have a parent support group, and this one parent is extremely knowledgeable in the laws and so on, and what dictates down at ISBE. And I said that she would be excellent as a go-to person for a support group for people who are having questions for parents and so on. But many times, and I will tell you this too, what we find most often is the parents will be calling us and saying, but I'm pretty sure my child's dyslexic, but I mentioned to the school, and of course they don't see it. Okay, and in other words, our parents sometimes become more educated in dyslexia, more aware of dyslexia, because they're going online and they're searching, as opposed to our educators that are not. Okay, now I'm not saying that none of them are, so I don't want that to be misconstrued. But I'm just saying, along the lines that you were just discussing, I would love it if I could have administrators come up, walk in, I'd have them observe. Teachers walk in and say, what are you doing here? And special ed teachers, reading specialists come in and say, what are you doing here? I've had this student, the student is doing so much better, I want to know what you're doing.
I'd like to know, is it just educators that can come in to learn this process?
Good question.
Or can...
Okay, the guidelines to be a trainee. The
Mhm.
guidelines, very good. Thank you. The guidelines are you have to have a bachelor's degree. You don't have to have it in education. A bachelor's degree. And I believe the reason why they set that guideline is because then the feeling is you have a control of the English language. You are capable of writing and using the English language. So that is, believe me, we've had some people with their associate's degree, and I know they would be excellent at this. But I can't change that. And once again, since we are also in a research, we have to keep our guidelines pretty
And it's
tight.
a 10-month program that you go in and you learn the process.
The training
and you
is.
Train and, okay.
The training is. And again, follows along with seeing two students 2 times a week, usually on the same day, back to back. And we're really doing extremely well.
So now
We're really doing well.
once you go in and you're in the program and it's 10 months to get through it, I'm just saying, for instance, say if I can't meet on that Wednesday, you only can meet with that student that time?
Good
or can
question.
You change
No,
your
good
time?
question. I tell the parents and I tell the tutors the same thing, or the trainees the same thing, tutors, trainees. Work it out with your parents.
Okay.
Let's try to be as understanding of each other's schedule, and let's try and see what we can work out. And let's see if we can't at least try and get those 2 students on the same day. Sometimes it doesn't work that way. That's okay. We are open we're actually open Monday through Thursday.
Oh, okay.
Monday is usually for paperwork. So Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, that's when we have what we would call our tutoring sessions are then.
Oh, okay. And it's 2 years?
Average.
Okay.
I have had a student that's gotten through in approximately 7 months.
Oh,
It was
wow.
amazing. I mean, he just took off. He just took off.
That.
That was amazing. But then again, the severity is different. Okay. And then, and we have had students that have needed the full 3 years because of, again, the severity of the dyslexia. Okay.
So with ADHD, they suggest you treat with medication,
We can't.
but with dyslexia,
We can't say to parents, you need to do that. We do not do that.
no.
We can maybe
do that.
ask if they've thought about it.
Okay.
We do have to let them know that if they're in a session and the session is falling apart because the distractibility is so high, then we have to address it to the parent and say, okay, we have 2 things going on here. We have the focusing issue, okay? And then we also can say, and perhaps this program is not for your child. The program is not working for your child. Okay, so then we go down that road as well, okay? We try to keep our students in if we can, but it sometimes that can be an issue.
Now, there's not a medication though for dyslexia.
No.
It would be for the
No,
ADHD.
it's for the ADHD.
Okay.
That just helps with the
Yes.
focusing.
Yes.
Helps with the focusing.
I just wanted
But,
to clarify.
Yeah, no, the
Sure.
medication is
Oh.
Orton Gillingham.
Yes. Yes.
No, and there are programs out there that are OG based, Orton Gillingham based, the Wilson program, Slingerland program, and so on. Here's another issue. You can have a program brought into a school system. Wilson has been brought into the Freeport system. Okay. The key is training. Okay. The training is everything. If there are many teachers, and I can tell you now we're on our 2nd generation without phonics. They took phonics out in about 95. So we have approximately 2 generations without phonics. So we have parents that are going, I don't know how to help them, okay. So now if you give training, let's say you give a 3-hour training, if this teacher has not had a phonetic background, nor has it been addressed at the university level, and believe me, I'm not going to let the universities go on this one. I would want to hold them accountable, my opinion, that this needs to be addressed on that level for our new teachers that are coming out. So we have to be careful with our expectations. And again, training is the key for anything. The more well-trained you are, the more finer honed is that program. and the more it will move more successfully. A very quick training, and you know what, it's going to be guessed by golly. That works in waitressing, that works in bartending, it works in anything like that. The better trained you are, the more adept you are at executing your occupation. Woof, where did I get that? And Cindy will attest to that, won't you, dear? She's an excellent waitress.
Yes, she is.
Okay, and I don't, we talked a little bit about dyslexia and so on, and I know what this is, I don't want to take up too many people's time, I know everybody wants to get home. I understand that too. So, did I give everybody kind of, you have any questions, don't hesitate to call me. You want to come see the center, call me, okay? Just pop up, and I'll have you sit in on, and particularly with someone that you don't know, and a student that you don't know. And the students are comfortable with someone coming in and observing, okay? And we have cameras and so on, so the security is tight, and it's appropriate. So,
Great.
Thank you.
thank you.
Interesting.
Oh, the one thing I do want to leave you with, we are trying to get into the school districts. We have contacted school districts. And the reason why is because when the funds fail on this, we want at least the program to be in the schools. If the program is in the schools, then it survives and then it keeps going.
The program should be in the schools. I don't get that. It should be in the schools.
Thank you.
It's part of the educational system.
I agree with you completely.
They decided that whole language learning, that's the current trend in English language, in reading. And that's how teaching is. There's always a trend of like, this is how we teach this idea. Just like Common Core Math, which I know a lot of people have an issue with, but it's actually quite clever. And it's totally different from how we used to do it. We might decide in 20 years it's the worst thing ever. Who knows?
And we do have those trends in education. You're an educator, am I correct?
I am not sure if my teaching certificate is still valid, but
Okay,
yeah.
but you're an educator. Okay, in here you are. Okay, we in education, we swing this way and we
Yeah.
swing this way.
Yeah, depending.
We can never just go here and go, maybe a little bit of this and this and this might actually be appropriate. And instead, it's the, oh, let's do what so-and-so is doing, and let's do this. And research-based helped, but believe me, there's not very much research-based on a whole word or, you know, that approach. There is not much out there. There's much more out there on the phonetic program. And for some reason, phonics, and I'm on tape, phonics was called the F word, you know. In any event, for some reason that's taken out, and it's pulled back in, and it's taken out. But I can tell you, in this length of time, this is the longest it has been pulled away from students. Since the 90s. And so that's, anyone, how many people here have been educated on phonics? Raise your hands. Great.
Way before now.
Wow.
My phonics
Okay.
teacher, maybe.
Electric company's great. Okay. But can you imagine if you're using this part of the brain and you can't catch on to it quick, you not only need that, you really have to dive into it even more. More specific, and we, like I say, we have, you know, where they're making the letters and saying the sound and so on, and putting it together and moving in a correct progression, as opposed to a guess by golly, you don't know this, then I'll teach you about that. But how does it connect to this?
Right.
So,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
I so appreciate the time that you've given me. Thanks, Patrick. Good to see you. Thank you for assisting me. Thank you, girls. Thank you.
All righty. The next order of business is the approval of resolution 2018 TR01, the sexual harassment policy. Have a motion and a second, please.
Second.
Motion myself, second by opposition. You have a chance to look over this, please.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
Well, just,
You can answer them.
yeah, because I'm worried, it's legal. Because it says if someone was reporting sexual harassment, it would go, if it was supervisor, they would go to the lawyer, right? My question, I was trying to figure out how to ask this, but like, and then the consequences, if you're found guilty of sexual harassment, you have to pay $5,000 and whatever discipline. But then, if you're found to have falsely reported it, it's a $5,000 fine as well. So my question is the township attorney litigating any of that? Because that would be problematic, right?
Yeah, it probably would be.
Then Michael would have to recuse himself,
Mhm.
and then it would be up to the board to decide who to hire to do that. Because first of all, they go to Patrick. And if they can't go to Patrick,
Right,
if he were the perpetrator, then they would, of course, have to go to Mike.
right. And then Mike couldn't litigate it because he
Yeah,
would
he
be.
would have big conflict of interest.
Even if it was, I guess even if it was anyone reported any sexual harassment incident, and it was determined to be false, how is it then, like, who is litigating that? Because if it was.
It would be up to the board.
So
Okay.
now, here's how it works. You go to Mike if I'm the one that's
Let's
perpetrating.
take that part out. Sorry, because the issue is rather just, if the difference between it being a false allegation made in good faith and a false allegation where you're getting a $5,000 fine, what lawyer is determining that is what I'm asking. Because it seems like it would be hard if it was the township attorney, it could never be unbiased.
I got a good solution for you. Barb, could you call Mike for us?
I will.
We'll put Mike on speakerphone. He told me if there's a question, just put me on speakerphone, give me a call. So we'll let Mike answer that
Right,
question.
because there's like a whole bit about like how you can't get in trouble for making a report, but then at the end it's like, but if you do, and it was wrong, you gotta pay $5,000.
There was consequences of some, because that's been known to happen.
Yeah,
You have false accusations, and that's just as damaging
for
if
sure.
it was the other way around. I had the speaker turned up all the way. Mike, we're in a meeting here, and we're talking about the sexual harassment, and Melinda has a question that I think you need to respond to. Go ahead.
Okay, hopefully I can ask this right. So, basically I'm asking who, if there's a complaint made, and it's determined to be false, and there's all this language about reporting and a whistleblower not being able, there being no retaliation, illegal to retaliate negatively against someone who makes an accusation, but if it turns out to be false, then they could get a fine of $5,000. So my question is, who is litigating that situation? Is it ever the township attorney?
Not that I know of. That's usually the nature of a civil lawsuit. I don't have it in front of me right now. I apologize. I'm on my other computer, but I could look that up right now and just take a look at it. Under Public Act 100-554, normally that would not be the township attorney. I think it talks about violations of certain state statutes.
Which would imply that it would be a state attorney.
One second, just bring it up.
That would make sense.
Oh, wait, yeah, wait, maybe.
Page 6.
Is that C? And I have it like circled, but I didn't read it hard enough.
Public safety.
I just glossed apparently on that first sentence. Yeah, a state's attorney. Wait, no, this is saying like which, if any of these officers.
Did they make a false report so alleging a violation of any provision?
Speak up, Kathy.
Is guilty.
Any person who
It's saying that those
intentionally
are
makes a
before.
false report alleging a violation of any provision of the State Officials and Employees Ethics Act to an Ethics Commission, an inspector of the State Officials and Employees Ethic Act to the Ethics Commission, an Inspector General, the State Police, a State's Attorney, the Attorney General, or any other law enforcement official is
An ethics
guilty
commission, that too.
of a Class A misdemeanor.
An ethics commission may levy an administrative fine. So who would the ethics commission be?
We don't have one on a township level. We should have a township ethics officer. usually that's a reference to state statute.
Okay.
Wouldn't that be, Mike, wouldn't that be similar to when, if you file a complaint against, like, an elected official, it goes to the state's attorney, and the state's attorney would turn it over to the state police for investigation. And then it's out of the state's attorney's hands.
Yeah, only if it's an allegation of criminal.
Okay, gotcha, okay. But this is criminal, a violation of this would be criminal, wouldn't it?
Potentially.
No,
On the level of that.
criminal actions are ones that are classified as misdemeanor or felony.
Okay.
I mean, it could be a
Oh, it does say
violation
it is a
of
class A misdemeanor.
It does say it's a Class A misdemeanor in your document, that,
Okay, that's what the state statute says.
yeah,
That's all.
okay.
Okay. I think I got it right here. I'm on another conference call with, Homeowner Association.
Did that answer your question?
He's looking it up. He's looking up the law right now. That's why he's on another conference call, so he was on another site, so. He's in demand.
I guess the question then would be, what is the ethics commission? Because it says an ethics commission, you know, the administrative officer, who decides that?
And we don't have one, so as he said, there should be an ethics officer. And I don't know how to.
We usually have one for every unit of local government.
I've never heard of an ethics officer for us.
Well, you know, it's under the Illinois,
Section 5C on page 6. What I'm asking is,
Sure.
would the determination of whether an allegation is intentionally false or
Found to be false?
unintentionally false, like non-maliciously false, would that be determined within township or
No.
within
That
outside?
would be determined by the state's attorney's office.
Okay,
Because it would, in order to prove a violation, they'd have to prove that they intentionally violated the statute.
mhm,
And to intentionally, that requires what we call the mens rea, or the guilty mind, proof of intent, which is intent or knowing with there's another category called, intentionally or not violated. That shows intent. Says under paragraph B, any person who intentionally makes a false report alleging a violation of any provision of this act to an ethics commissioner, an inspector general, state police, state attorney, attorney general, or law enforcement, is guilty of a class A misdemeanor. So if you know it's false and you still report it, then the state's attorney attorney would have the exclusive jurisdiction to violate, to prosecute them for violation of the timetable.
Okay.
Did that answer everything?
I think.
Anybody else have any questions for Mike while I've got him here? Okay, there being none, I'm going to let you go, Mr. Phillips.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
All right. Was that about as clear as mud?
Yeah, the state's attorney. From the
Yeah.
way
Yeah,
it sounds like
it
the
sounds
state's
like-
attorney would take it.
No, it is not litigated by.
Yeah, okay.
Are there any more questions on our sexual harassment policy? Anybody?
You can do a voice vote.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. The next order of business is the discussion and approval of a lease agreement for 3 years. We are only going to talk, because I just handed this thing out to you guys today. So give you guys some time to take it and look over it, and then come back with your questions at the next meeting. We'll approve it at the next meeting. Okay?
The font size on this is
Pretty small, isn't it?
beautiful.
I did have one question. I was reading it online. The liability insurance, that's what I was trying to figure that one out.
What?
So does the tenant, you guys pay a liability insurance?
Yeah.
Is that what this is saying?
Yeah, Torma.
You have it, they have
Oh,
it
through
through Torma.
Torma. Okay, okay.
They've already got it.
Yeah.
It's just
Oh,
making
okay.
sure that they keep it.
Oh, okay. That's what I was
So,
wondering. I thought in addition to paying,
Torma, you're thinking they
that's
got a
what
new one.
Right.
but we pay Torma for other
Uh-huh.
things too. So, okay. That was my only question when I read through it.
All right. Next order of business is the supervisor's report. I have our expenditure budget report to hand out. So,
Yeah, I thought I knew that.
so what did you all think about the dyslexia thing? What do you guys
I
think?
thought it was really interesting.
It's
But
sad
I was
that,
thinking that when we first got everything, I thought it was $5,000
No.
to
For the program
run
for the
for the
year?
program, but it's $5,000 per
For students?
student, so that's what
Yeah.
Which, if I'm clear, a large portion of that is to provide, is the training component. I don't
an hour
know
training.
how possible it would be,
Wow.
I don't know. It just seems
No, no,
like it'd be
give-
cool to
give me your
train
thoughts.
people and get them into the community in different places, like the Housing Authority or the King Center, where you
That's
could
what I was
have
thinking.
access to kids that are
Mhm.
not going to go to the Masonic Temple.
Yep.
They're just not gonna get there.
That's what I was thinking.
But it seems very feasible that, like, if we were to give money, like, to somehow have it be like a, where we're funding someone to get, to
be
do
able
that.
To do that.
To do
If
the
we,
training?
yeah, if we found somebody that had, that's why I think I asked the question about who can
Uh-huh.
do it. And, you know, there's somebody out there that has a bachelor's that would love to be able to do that and go in, because she said she's also limited to teachers or
people with
people,
bachelor's
Uh-huh.
degrees.
well, yeah, people
Yeah,
that's
they
coming in
don't-
helping. So that's why they can only take the 25 students, because they only have.
Limited as to volunteers.
Yes,
Yep.
the volunteers,
And
so,
it's too bad that you have to have a bachelor's. I mean, if you have background in like early childhood education,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
but I guess through the
Yeah,
company that
they
they're
have
working
to-
through,
they
that's
have
what
the
they
strict
want you to
guidelines.
have, so,
In
you
order
know.
to learn this. Yeah.
Well, it's always, because they're part of a
Test project.
research.
Mhm. It's
Yeah.
research,
Oh,
everything is
okay.
research based nowadays. Okay.
So I don't have a problem with the
Donation.
donation of whatever we came up with. I don't have a problem with whatever we came up with. I just wish there was someone that we could
Kind of
have
sponsor to get
sponsor
that,
to go through the program, that
Well, maybe.
not only once they
Yeah.
learned the program and they were there, maybe they could go out, like she said, they have private, tutors, and maybe they could go out to other places, like you said, the King Center, the housing.
And be an
Or
extension
whatever,
of
and be an
that.
extension of that, and did that, so. You know, and it maybe after 2 years, we did those, maybe we did another person or 2 people for 2 years, you know, and kept doing it until we had that. Not only are they up under, what's the name of the place? Up under, the Masonic Temple, it's also a dyslexia program, thank you, up under housing.
Yeah,
I mean,
Boys
up
and Girls
under
Club,
township.
housing. Yeah, because like you said, a lot of parents probably can't,
Can't afford it.
you know, they can't.
There might not even
they
be
can't-
identified,
Right.
there might be someone working with that kid after
Yeah.
school.
Exactly, who can
seeing
identify
that.
it.
And then sometimes you got teachers that, hey, they don't want to be bothered with it anyway, and.
There's not
Yes.
There's a lot of teachers, they are advocating for kids, and that's why I asked, because like I think there's probably a lot of teachers that are seeing kids struggle, might know a little bit about why, but maybe don't. You can only do so much as a teacher.
That's right.
You can't always,
You can't force a parent to do anything.
yeah, and you can't, and you only have so much one-on-one time with a student in school.
But you also have the, one thing about the school district, they do have FRCs that are liaisons between the student and the school that can also.
Oh, family relationship.
Yes, they also have
They
those that
advocate too.
can advocate
Yeah,
for those things to help parents say, hey, this is what your child has and this is what we would like you to get into. So they do have all kinds of ways you can get through there. It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
are they using those tools to get
And
through?
how can they get the kids tested?
yeah, that's
Right.
the,
That's
That's-
the main thing, so
That's
that you
something
can
else too.
have an understanding that these are the kids.
I mean,
that need
they're
help.
getting tested for all other
But the
things.
schools
yeah.
pay for the testing, right?
Yes,
The schools pay for the testing.
because they go through their,
But they-
the way she styled
Those
it.
are
They get to run around, the parents
Uh-huh.
are
Well,
gonna
what
run
did-
around.
what gets
testing
me-
a lot of
this,
times.
what it sounds like when she says cognitive ability testing, it's a, not like a singular test, it's like a loose, like data gathering, long-term, like, I don't know if you've ever had a kid with IEPs or gone through any of that process,
Yeah.
where you have to like,
Yeah.
basically
I mean, I
have
haven't
like,
had a kid, but I've been through
long-term
the process.
documentation.
Yeah.
And basically, if there's not, like a lot of behavioral issues, and there's not a parent pushing for that, it's probably not gonna happen, because there's only so much time in a day, and like, it's a horrible thing, people fall through the cracks,
Right, exactly.
because there's not someone loud enough for that person.
That 17-year-old that was reading at a first grade level certainly fell through a lot of cracks.
Right.
That
Yeah,
is
that can
a
also
hard-
be an issue of cognitive situations, you know, like, that could be any number of, because I knew a very wealthy man in college who had all the resources in the world and the worst dyslexia, to where he had to have someone write his papers. No amount of tutoring was gonna make him read normal.
But he obviously was a teacher or went to school.
Oh, he was in art
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
So, he didn't
Anyway,
really have to write out, and had resources to not have to deal with it.
But whatever, if township would like to maybe even look into the funding, if there's someone out there and doing that, I'd be in agreement with that. Or if we just feel like funding them, I'm in agreement with it, whatever it takes, just to help out.
Okay.
Especially since we have the money and it's sitting there, and
Yes.
we might as well do something with
something.
it. There's no need in just letting it sit there. If they need
They
it,
need it,
let's
you know.
give it to them. So,
All right. The next order of business is the assessor's report.
I have nothing to report today.
Okay. The next order of business is a public comment. Any public comment?
What about trustees?
Oh, I'm sorry, trustees report, excuse me. Trustee report.
Nothing?
Okay, I'm sorry. Next order of
Then you
business.
can go on.
Public comments. Any public comments? Any other business coming for the town? I entertain a motion to adjourn till Monday, February 5th, 2018.
February 5th.
Yes, that's the next one.
Wow.
Wow, time flies.
Yeah.
Somebody want to make a
Make a
motion?
motion for it?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Wow.
All right.
Get out of bed.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, meeting adjourned.